So what I'd like to do now is just open this up for just a conversation about what you talked about in your groups, hear from your colleagues. You can talk, which we would love, right? Or you can chat in as well. So what ideas did you come up with on how we might radically improve the experience? And if there were any bold steps that you thought, hey, we could maybe do this? What thoughts?
I'll go for group 3. One of the things that we had talked about, so radically improving the experience, bold steps taken, I think, are to like position ourselves, like there's this, what we've done historically is rebuilding very fast and efficiently for homeowners after disasters. What we haven't done is address like the root cause of those increased number of disasters, which is climate change. So rebuilding like with more resilient materials and sustainable materials to help combat the climate change itself, or make people more resilient so that they aren't replacing as many things in the future, which saves both like municipal government, the federal government who's using HUD money, and then potentially nonprofits in the future because they're not replacing as much stuff in these homes when the next disaster happens. So that's using like PVC materials for cabinets and doors and maybe even wall panels. It's using like hemp board for like floorboards, and if at some point they're ever load bearing for like roof decking because they grow faster than trees. So more sustainable and less bad things put into the boards anyways.
So I love that. So resilient people, right? And resilient home building products as well. Did you guys think that there were any challenges or opportunities with that?
Yeah, and just taking a step back, also like the Energy Star and all that, like, which is like better positioning people to pay their bills, right? So like their output is less, right? So as they get back to normal, then they are like polluting less. There's less carbon emissions and things like that. So, but the biggest challenges for things like this, one is pricing, right? So material pricing right now for PVC products stateside is very, very expensive. And looking at this in the Bahamas, one of the ways we like circumvented that was we went straight to the manufacturers in China. So we were able to like cut out the middleman, the big box stores, and retailers, and buy it direct. So we actually get it at a like pretty comparable price so that we're not increasing, because we rebuild for low to moderate income families. It would not make sense for us to like triple the budget on a home and build less houses, but more resilient houses. So
it sounds like some of this we're already doing. Yeah, I see the hands clapping by Kyle. Totally agree. Is there something additional beyond what we've already started doing that you kind of felt would be an achievable milestone to go a little bit further with what you're talking about?
I think the milestone is, you know, setting a goal to like by, 2025, we're going to use 25% or more of building materials that are either sustainable or resilient in the home. And maybe as time progresses and we can, find demand for it, we can find other like things and increase that to 50% by 2030 or, 2035.
So I love that you're also using your SMART goals there, Andy, right? Like let's make it specific and measurable, and then we've got something that we can really, really work towards. I love it. I love it. So is there another team? What did you guys come up with?
I can go next. Our team came up with several different kind of ways to radically improve the experience, and the one that to kind of really delve into was to for flood insurance to be covered along with homeowners insurance. And so to do that, we would need to change the insurance industry. And the challenges that we saw were the status quo, people's desire for profit. And we started digging into, okay, what would be opportunities, what supports could really help us. We talked about having an advocate who's kind of high up in the insurance industry, maybe a CEO. We talked about, getting education to people in the industry to see, this is the difference this would make for people. And a more radical and unexpected idea was, if something happened to the insurance industry, so like coronavirus was really unexpected and in a lot of ways, if something similar happened to the insurance industry to where it needed to like rethink itself or rebuild itself in some way, there'd be an opportunity for some other shifts to maybe happen at the same time. And then we thought about, for achievable milestones, having a conversation with heads of insurance companies would be a milestone, and then success would be measured by the number of insurance companies who make this changeover.
So Andrea, I love that, because that is taking a current constraint, right, within our current box, which is insurance companies aren't really helping us with what we need here, right? So we're in a new box and we're redefining what insurance would look like. And so I love that. And I do think, one of the opportunities, you talked about CEOs, but it's, we already have a partnership, but is there a way to partner with companies that come together with this new box mentality, which is, this is what we need to do. How do we make that happen, rather than seeing it as a barrier, right? Really, really nice. Great. I just love the thinking, right? Because you're looking at constraints and you're kind of throwing them out, which is what we need to do. Do we have another team that would like to share? This is incredible. Anybody?
I'll go for us.
Okay.
Ours is very similar to Andy's. We talked about integrating resilient materials that would be, essentially flood-proof for future disasters, similar to Andy, probably some type of PVC walling and flooring. And so, the value add would be, if our clients or families were impacted again, they would be less severely impacted or could recover on their own, and so less of a need for our services. Some of the things we would, I think, some of the barriers or challenges that we would need to, that we might encounter is, getting these materials. They're not always in some areas where we operate. We would have to convince homeowners to do something that's different, that may not look like what they're used to. We'd have to learn how to install these, and we might have to raise money in order to cover the costs.
Yeah.
And then again, similar to Andy, milestones, we'd set a number of homes that we would like to, complete using these new resilient building materials by, the end of the year. And then we want to monitor those homes over time. So we'd want to do them in likely high flood prone areas and see if they're impacted again, and if those families are able to cover on their own. We'd also look to see if there is any type of discount on homeowners or flood insurance. So maybe there can be a cost offset for the homeowner by using more resilient materials.
Love it. Love it. Really great. What about our last team? Did you have something similar or something different? Anything to add?
Yeah, I'll go. So what we had talked about was something that SVP has their feet wet in, is using drones or other apps like Eagle View kind of thing to assess neighborhoods, to get, that way we know, like right after disaster, what's affected for the material, get boots on the ground. And then, some challenges to that is like, well, how can we look on the inside of the house around the same time as well? Some technology that would be able to do that. And then was mentioned, well, then how do we prevent this altogether, which Andrea and her group said was, well, we could, starts with every homeowner could have flood insurance. And then I think it kind of went back to what Andrea was saying for that.
Yeah, so I really, really love that. And so I know drones is something that has been really important for farmers too. And I shared in our call on Tuesday that we've been using them mostly to observe fire damage, right? So it's more often than not that we know when a house has been damaged or destroyed. And we're the first people to let a family know that their home, you know, is gone in a lot of cases, right? And we're right there with funding at the very first minute. So here's the bad news, here's the good news. So there are some incredible ideas, and I love what you guys came up with. Our group on Tuesday also talked about a resilient community. So like maybe it's an empty lot of land and we're building homes that are resilient to start with, so we've got something to kind of pilot. So you can kind of see when we start on this process, there's all sorts of ideas that really come up. And what I'd like to do now is turn it back over to Jill. Now that we've got you thinking sort of blue sky about what's possible, we've got some tips and tools on things that you need to think about as you're moving forward being a revolutionary. So let me go ahead and turn it over to Jill.
Hi, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. I apologize for lack of video. My internet connection is unstable, so hopefully it stays stable for the audio. But if we are going to carry out those innovations, those wonderful innovations and ideas that you guys came up with, we need to take those creative risks and learn fast and fail forward. And what we mean by that is that failing fast helps us to learn quickly and make adjustments early and often. So while most organizations support and provide plenty of opportunities for learning, failure has historically been seen as bad and is not as an opportunity to learn. So what we want to do is kind of flip the thinking on that and look at failing as praiseworthy. And if you want to do some Google research, you can reach out and look at Harvard Business School. Amy Edmondson, she researched failure at length and really came up with a spectrum where not all failure is created equally. And the spectrum runs from blameworthy failures, where somebody wants to fail on purpose or do something bad, or maybe they just don't have the skill or ability to carry something out, to what we call those praiseworthy failures that come out from exploratory testing or hypothesis testing. And that's what we're looking for here. If you look at the quote from Daniel Ek on the screen, he's the CEO of Spotify. And he said, "We aim to make mistakes faster than anyone else. We want it to happen fast so we can learn fast and improve fast." At Spotify, they use phrases like failure is always an option and it's safe to fail. And they engage in projects that have risks, and they organize controlled experiments where failures and successes provide them with opportunities to learn. So this is what we're talking about here, is as you are looking at exploring using and obtaining more sustainable materials, or changing the insurance industry, or utilizing technology and drones, you know, identify what those risks are, and, you know, keep testing and learning, and again, failing forward with that. I'll give you a couple of examples. So the lubricant WD-40 is named because it took 40 attempts to get the formula right. And that's 40 failures there, or 39 failures, I should say, before they got that right. And also bubble wrap. Bubble wrap came about as a failed experiment for wallpaper. I don't know if any of you knew that, but I thought that was pretty cool. Does anybody have or want to speak up about any praiseworthy failure examples that they know of or they can share?
Jill, the one that I know of that I don't know that a lot of people know about is that Amazon actually tried to invent their own cell phone. So they were following, you know, the Apple iPhones and the Androids, and they really kind of went down their own path, and it cost them like $600 billion, that mistake. So that was a huge one. What else do you guys know? Yeah, there's some big ones.
Richard Branson, actually, when he was a child, his headmaster told him that he would either end up in prison or become a millionaire. And as we all know, he's probably a billionaire by now, but he's not successful because he tried to prove everyone wrong. I mean, he failed at many things. And you can look at a whole list. It has virgin cola, virgin clothes, virgin jeans, virgin cars, virgin vodka. It goes on and on and on. So he refused to let failure keep him from moving forward. So this is really what this is all about, is to keep trying, keep testing, keep learning, and create those environments where your people can succeed at praiseworthy failures. Kathy, if you want to move to the next slide, there we go.
Yeah.
So how do you create that environment? We had 8 things, and we'll send you the list out after this call. But first is to foster psychological safety so that this rapid learning can take place, and ensure that your people feel safe to make, own up to, and learn from their mistakes. So remember, we said Spotify failure is always an option. They create that environment where people feel safe to make those failures and continue to learn from them. The second is to be inclusive. So not all revolutionaries are natural outspoken leaders such as yourself. So be sure to ask others what they think and what they've learned, and include them in the discussion. Third, embrace and leverage diverse backgrounds and perspectives on your team, and encourage and insist on inducing those new boxes. Then empower your team and get out of the way. Sometimes as leaders, we need to just take a step back and let them figure it out, and you just be there for them to call on to you for support and guidance. Insist on having the courage to try, even if the odds seem stacked against them. Again, you know, failing forward is also about trying and learning from mistakes, and having that courage. Avoid perfection, because you're never going to get there. And if you do, the needs may have changed by that time. Always reflect on the experience and ask, what would you do differently the next time? And last, share with others. You know, how would you coach someone going through a similar experience? You know, as a business leader, again, you need to create an environment where that failing forward is accepted and embraced as part of a learning culture that seeks to continually improve. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Kathy, because we are going to move on to the next revolutionary action, the final revolutionary action that can help drive us forward.
Yeah, so that fail forward, you know, fail fast is, you know, it's a little bit unusual, right, to get us really thinking about that. And so you need that, but you also need to build skill and resilience. This quote, persistence and resilience only come from having been given the chance to work through difficult problems, right? So we've talked a lot about being a revolutionary. What kind of skills, if you want to just chat in, what kind of skills do you think we might need that might be different than typical leadership skills, if you can think of any, in order to be able to do this? Do any come to mind? Anybody?
Short-term memory loss.
Short-term memory loss is what? Oh, you mean so we forget the old ways, so we're just thinking new stuff?
I think it's sort of like a sports reference, like you put your mistakes behind you and move forward to the next play.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that, right? We've got to learn from them, make sure they don't happen again, but put them aside and keep moving forward and not be held back by that. I think that is really, really key. So there are a number of things that we'd like to talk about here very briefly, building skill and resilience, because I do think one of them is it's really all about our attitude towards learning and doing things differently. So I don't know if you've ever heard of the concept called growth mindsets, but it is the belief that we are likely to either have growth mindsets, fixed mindsets, or mixed mindsets. And growth mindsets, that's a tongue twister, right? But a growth mindset is where we say, you know, I may not know how to do that today, but I certainly can figure it out. And it makes me think of my kids that are just on YouTube, right? And if they want to create a video or something, they've got to figure it out in 5 minutes. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I would be thinking through the whole production, right? Very different approach. A fixed mindset is where, you know, when my daughter was applying to college and she was taking the SAT, she said, oh my gosh, I can't do math. Even those words, I can't do, put you in that frame of a fixed mindset, and that can really hold you back. And of course, a mixed mindset just means there are different situations and occasions where you might have a growth mindset and sometimes you might be fixed. The challenge is to get ourselves out of the fixed mindset. IQ, different than popular belief, is not set at birth and never changing. You can get better, you can learn, and you can grow. So we'd like to talk about a couple of very specific tools and processes that we think are really critical to this conversation and helping us be revolutionaries. So the first on the left is some of the new leadership competencies and behaviors that we find in agile leaders. And agile leaders are the ones that they're not comfortable with status quo. They're always looking to the future, and they know that we've got to move fast and we've got to, you know, we've got to move on a dime because nothing is standing still. So the big four competencies: humility is about being a servant leader, right? Really delegating and supporting the people on your team. And to Jill's point, asking them questions, really getting them involved. Adaptability is about course correcting. So you may be working a project and someone comes up with a brilliant idea. Are you able to take that in and change course quickly? Visionary. Some of this is you got to be strategic and really out of the box. So are you doing that for your team, for the company? And engagement is the way that we, you know, bring everybody together. We socialize ideas. We start thinking about what might get in our way and what other opportunities we haven't considered. So I would challenge you to think about, are you an agile leader? These competencies are key. And then, so let's talk about, like, is there a process? Is there some way that we can really try and put what we've talked about today into practice? And so what we'd like to share here, and this is an area where we do have a YouTube video that will come out from Kyle to you guys to go a little bit deeper, but design thinking was originally started by the design industry and IDEO, which you may or may not be familiar with. It was popularized by Stanford University, and they have a whole design thinking center where you can get certified. But the concept is that growth is delivered through empathetic design and rapid prototyping and testing for early input and refinement. So they call it human-centered design. And I think in your context, the human center is the families. It's those names that you put out. It is the people that you are really connecting with. And instead of using your old box, you're using your new box thinking, and you're saying, you know, getting really empathetic. You're walking a mile in their shoes. Seriously, close your eyes and imagine if that was your home and you had gone through the experience they're going through. What are you thinking? What are you feeling? What do they really need, right? And from there, you come up with concepts that become, they call them designs, but they're just ideas or concepts. You quickly ideate around those. What could that look like? And then you get a prototype very quickly, and you get those nuggets of ideas out to people like your homeowners, and you test them, and you get feedback, and then you test another concept, and it's this continuous refinement. It happens very quickly. And a very quick example of a mission-driven organization that has put this process into play is the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. One of their goals was to bring clean drinking water, you probably all know this, to the most impoverished people across the world. And so they really wanted to empathize, but they also wanted some partners in this process. So they went out and identified 11 water companies that were the right partners for this conversation. They came together they've all left their old boxes. They came in, they kind of established a new box, and they started with the people that they were trying to serve. And through that process, they came up with very, very innovative ways to work together and accomplish that goal. And like I said, there's more in that YouTube video, but it's very, very relevant to the work that you guys are doing. And I would encourage you to watch that when we send that to you. The other piece of this is that at Farmers, we've really institutionalized this process. We have something called an iLab, which can be in person or virtual, but it's using technology to take teams through this design thinking process. So at the end of this session today, we're going to give you kind of a call to action. If you see yourself as a revolutionary or somebody that really wants to drive impactful change at SPP, we would love for you to raise your hand and connect with Kyle and let him know of your interest, because we're going to give you an opportunity to actually go through this process and see what it's like. And I see some heads nodding, which I love. It's hard to explain. You got to experience it. But it's how you bring those crazy concepts to reality. Bringing us back to what we have covered today, the 4 steps that it takes to revolutionize SBP, connect with a purpose-driven mission. And I know you have all done that, but now we're taking the mission to another level, right? We want to really change not only the experience, we want to shorten the time, and we want to lead them better so that they don't come back as a future client. We know that we've got to reimagine and redefine the future. So how do you change the game in your functional areas, in your sites, across the board? I hope we've shared, it's important to learn fast and fail forward. We're going to make mistakes. Let's talk about them. But let's be willing and comfortable to do that. And then you got to build scale and resilience. It starts with us and our growth mindsets, or we never really get to the place where we think we should do this or we can do this. And then just in closing, the call to action, I just talked about this a little bit. I'm hoping that this just got you energized, like I said, for 2021. But we are looking for a few volunteers that would like to be involved in this process. We will ask you, there will be some expectations that you come back. You may put together a couple of short slides on some of your concepts or ideas that you create that you can share with Kyle and potentially share with the leadership team. But the big question is, what role will you play in the revolution? I'd love to see all the hands up, but I know it's kind of a personal thing. But before we close out today, we would love you to type on the screen or chat in, or see if you can come off mute. What are you taking away from this conversation today? Are you energized? Are you nervous? Where are you? So let's go ahead and take a minute to do that. You can use your annotate tools. I see, okay, inspired. Let's keep them coming. Fail forward. Love the content. Good, excited. This space is ready for innovation, right? I love that. And I would love to think that Farmers is willing to partner, right? Let's figure out how we do that. Energize for 2021. Oh my God, you guys are incredible. Rethinking. I'm going to be rethinking the box thinking, right? I think that is absolutely terrific. Before I turn it over to Kyle, and Jill, I don't know if you have any additional comments, but I love to leave you with this quote. Others have seen what is and asked why. I have seen what could be and asked why not. Pablo Picasso, right? And we all have some of that in us. So Kyle, let us turn it over to you and any closing comments, and Jill, you as well.
Certainly. Thank you, Kathy. Viva la Revolution, SVP. Really appreciate this session in particular and how we can think bigger picture at SVP. And I encourage all of you to do that, not just in your day-to-day job, but also just SVP overall, big picture thinking. Like Kathy mentioned, if you are interested in participating in the Farmers Design Lab opportunity, please shoot me a message, shoot me a text, a note, whatever, to let me know, and I'll let Kathy know so we can hopefully schedule that. So please let me know. Again, thank you all so much for joining today. Kathy, Jill, thank you so much for your investment in our SVP people.
Okay. Thank you so much, you guys. You guys are awesome. Have a great Christmas or whatever your holiday of choice is, and just be safe.
Thank you for your patience with the technical issues as well.
Yeah.
No problem at all. All right. Well, with that, y'all have a great rest of your Thursday and happy holiday.